Episode 20, Bidding Wars. Under the guidance of the receptionist, the stylish young couple walked in with their heads held high, and the other customers in the office all looked over. The young man in sunglasses barged past Keith without a word and said arrogantly, "Do you have a house near Harvard? Pick the best one for me." The receptionist took the brochure from Keith's hands and flipped through it. "Oh, there's only one property available in that area right now. What a coincidence." "Oh," the man in shades said happily, "I'll take it. Money isn't a problem. Find someone to take me to see it." Keith frowned when he heard that. He said, "I'm sorry. I was here first, and I wanted to rent that place." "Yeah." The stylish young woman glanced at Keith with a look of disdain that matched her partner's. "You want to rent a place in the school district? I think you'd be better suited to the slums." The receptionist was clearly biased towards the couple and said, "Sir, although you were here first, the school's district rent is high. I don't think it would be suitable for you. If you wait a moment, I'll help you choose somewhere better suited to your budget, okay?" "Oh?" Keith turned a deaf ear to the receptionist's words. He looked at the rich couple and said lightly, "What did you say just now? I didn't hear it clearly." The man in shades was slightly taken aback when he heard that. He looked at Keith and said, "We said you should be in the slums. What are you going to do about it?" "What am I going to do?" Keith laughed and said, "Even Magnus Carrington doesn't dare talk to me like that. You're brave." The rest of the office was stunned. Magnus Carrington was a hotshot tycoon. The man in the sunglasses was indeed rich, but compared to Magnus, he was nothing. He shut his mouth and wondered what Keith's background was. Keith sneered, looked at the receptionist and said, "The rent is $4,000, right? I'll pay $7,000. I want that apartment." The receptionist opened her mouth and looked at Keith in disbelief. It wasn't common knowledge, but she knew that this agency was part of the Carrington Group. If Keith really did have some relation to Magnus, with just one word from him, she'd be fired on the spot. She looked at Keith, then turned to the rich couple, at a total loss as to what to do. The man in shades stared at Keith. Keith had clearly wanted to humiliate him, and in front of his girlfriend as well. He was in a difficult situation, and he said angrily, "Stop bragging. I'll pay $8,000 a month." Keith's face darkened, and he said, "Well, I'll pay $12,000. "What?" Everyone gasped once again. $12,000? The other man's face turned ashen, and he fell silent. Seeing this, Keith smiled and said, "You were so sure of yourself just a moment ago. How about this? Apologize to me, and then take your girlfriend and get out of here. I'll forget this ever happened. Otherwise, you'll need that $8,000 to cover your medical expenses." "You're threatening me?" The man's face turned red, and the woman beside him looked at Keith with fear. Suddenly, the guy in shades seemed to think of something. He laughed and said, "You said 12,000, but this place needs 6 months in advance. Are you seriously telling me you have $72,000 ready to drop on the deposit?" The more he thought about it, the more he felt it made sense. He said loudly, "If you can prove to me you have $72,000, I'll bow down and kiss your shoes." Even the receptionist seemed to come back to her senses at this, and she cast a doubtful look at Keith. "Sir, this is a high-end agency. Unless you're serious and have the money, please, don't waste our time." Keith looked from the young couple to the receptionist and smirked. He took his phone out of his pocket. The onlookers held their breath. That was a brand new iPhone Pro Max. It was not a cheap phone. Perhaps this kid really did have $72,000. Keith pulled out his various bank balances. On the screen, it showed that the total was $3.97 million. There was the sound of several people drawing their breath at once. Then there was complete silence. The receptionist's face turned red and then pale again. The man in shades was stunned. The next moment, his face turned red too. Thinking of what he'd just said, he really wanted to find a hole to hide in. After the initial shock, the stylish young woman beside him looked at Keith with a different expression. If Keith's aura hadn't been so strong, she would definitely have gone and sucked up to him. "You fulfilled the wish of the crowd to watch the show. Wish value +1. Progress 10 of 10. You can make a wish. You've broken the man and the receptionist's wish to get rid of you. Attribute point +1. Keith put away his phone and looked at the other man's red face. He said calmly, "You said it yourself. If you want to kneel down and kiss my shoes, please, go ahead." The man in the shade's face turned even redder. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd that had gathered, he didn't know whether to stay or go. At that moment, a new group of people came through the door. A beautiful lady walked in, followed by several bodyguards in black suits. When the receptionist saw her, she quickly went over to greet her. "Hello, Director Carrington." The lady nodded. "My family's Shallow Bay Villa." "Ah." Before she could finish her sentence, she spotted Keith and exclaimed, "Keith, why are you here?" Keith said with a faint smile, "Oh, Director Carrington, if you can do business here, why can't I?" The lady was Gwen Carrington, who had been so scared by Keith last night that her knees had gone weak and she'd crumpled to the floor. "Ah." Gwen stuttered for a moment before nodding to her bodyguards and turning around to leave. However, Keith's faint voice came from behind her. "Since you only just got here," he said, "why are you in such a hurry to leave?" Gwen trembled at Keith's words, and her reaction made the onlookers' eyes drop out of their sockets. Their mouths fell open in shock. Gwen was Magnus Carrington's wife and also the vice chairman of the Carrington Group. She often appeared on TV and was known across the entire state. And now it appeared that this upper-class lady knew Keith. In fact, they seemed to be quite familiar with each other. More importantly, she seemed to be afraid of Keith. Who was this handsome guy dressed in such ordinary clothes?